Hey guys, it's me again, Ariel, and as you see this time it's a little bit different what you're seeing on camera right now. Carla's not here for this video. As you can see, there's no one around me. I'm here doing just a little one-on-one in this video because I kind of wanted to do a follow-up of part one of our video, which was 2020 goodbye, which was, you know, kind of reflecting on the year 2020 and all the good and bad that came with it, and I wanted to come out with this other video. Now, I would first like to say two things before I do get started with this video. One, if you do hear some squeaky noise in the background, it's Peanut, of course. He always has to make himself known in the videos. He's playing with his little, looks like a little grenade, honeycomb toy, making a lot of squeakiness and stuff. So if you do hear that, that's him. And second, if you hear me sniffling, I apologize for that. Usually, twice a year I usually get the sinus infection, and due to my allergy stuff, it just lingers on and on forever. So if you do hear me sniffling, I do apologize for that in the video. Unfortunately, I can't edit that out or fix that any sort of way, and I sort of can't stop it, but just so you guys are aware, that's, you know, what's going on with me. But I want to go through in this video, and I have some notes on my phone, so if I do look down, I do apologize for that. I just have all my notes through here, and I kind of wanted to share a word with everyone when it comes in aspect to 2020 and in the upcoming year 2021. And I shared this message with my church as well. For, you know, due to COVID, you know, we weren't able to go to church as often because unfortunately there were some people who got infected and sick, and you know, there was a lot of different things that took place. So we were doing our Zoom, which we thank the creators of Zoom for making Zoom, because I know right the other day in the article that was like the #1 app downloaded in the App Store, which is amazing. So, you know, God bless those owners and stuff for, you know, they did something that's really helped out a lot of churches and businesses and just people all around, just able to connect during this tough time. So I shared that with them, and I felt like this would be nice words of encouragement to share with all you viewers out there. Some of you may, you know, either at one point were a believer and were in church. You may still be in church. You recently started in church, or maybe you never even heard of God or of his word in the Bible. But I wanted to share these few points here, that way to kind of reflect and, you know, make you think about, okay, yeah, you know, 2020 was a bad year. Some things did happen, but there's always hope even in the worst of all situations. So it's, you know, God is working throughout your trial, which, you know, we all face different types of trials, some bigger than others, some have longer lasting effect than others. But no matter what you're going through, whether you see it or not, God is there with you. And a lot of times we see that he works, you know, behind the scenes, kind of like how I like to do. You know, I'm not really a big fan of being in front of the camera, whether it is for pictures or for video, but I still do it, but I prefer to be behind the scenes. And a lot of times, whether we know it or not, he tends to work behind the scenes. And as I'll share with you here a few examples in the Bible, you know, some of these trials were to some of the biggest and greatest men of the Bible. You know, some of the stories that, you know, if you were in church when you were a little kid, you probably heard these stories a millions of times, and you have it in the back of your mind, but you heard it, but you didn't put as much importance to it. And I kind of want to re-bring that up. That way you can put importance into it and kind of, in a sense, compare it to your life and your situation. So the first one I want to talk about today is Noah. And as we know, Noah is famous for Noah's Ark. And everyone, I'm pretty sure, even people who probably haven't been to church probably know about this story of Noah pretty much being the chosen one to save humanity throughout all this going on. So, as my notes say, the sin and evil doing on earth was overwhelming. Genesis chapter 6, verses 6 through 7 says, God was sorry that he had made people on earth. It made him very sad in his heart. So God said, I will destroy all the people I created on earth. I will destroy every person and every animal and everything that crawls on earth, and I will destroy all the birds in the air because I am sorry that I have made them. Just reading that there is kind of like, whoa, that's kind of rough and kind of tough. I could just imagine how bad things must have been at that time, you know. For God to say that, you know, his biggest creation, which were the humans, you know, that's saying a lot. Now, we can see in verse 8, God states, but Noah pleased God, which is something that if he's mentioned that for a reason, that means Noah must have stood out compared to everyone else that was in existence in that time. And as we'll see further on, we have to thank Noah for being the way he was, and pretty much being the instrument the person used to save humanity. God decided to do a reset on all mankind by eliminating all of the wicked and unrighteous people on earth, and just saving Noah and his 3 children and their spouses, and of course Noah's wife as well. God's plan was to have Noah build an ark for when the moment arose, he and his family could enter the ark and follow the other instructions God provided him with. Now, despite preaching God's word to all that inhabited the earth around him, no one believed him, so they all perished. God said there's going to become a flood. There's going to be a flood over the face of the earth. Be ready, get yourselves right, and you're more than welcome to enter the ark. Now, at that time, again, if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe there was ever any rain on earth or anything mentioned of a flood. So people probably looked at Noah like he had 3 heads. What are you talking about? What is this thing called flood? That water is going to cover the earth. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm pretty sure they made fun of him and didn't believe him. So I'm sure Noah in those 120 years was probably kind of sad. Like, man, no one's believing what I'm saying, but I'm saying the truth because this is what God told me. But either way, he went about his business. He obeyed God and did what he had to do. Genesis 7, verse 11 through 14 shows us how water flooded all of the earth, and only those who were in the ark with Noah were saved, which again I mentioned was a total of 8 people. Noah, his wife, his 3 children with their 3 wives, and then of course all the animals that God instructed to enter the ark. So hearing that story, it's kind of pretty amazing, that for what? If I'm not mistaken, Noah had to be close to 500 years old, I believe, at this time. He was very up there in age when he had to build the ark and stuff. He's going 120 years preaching to the people, hey, this is happening, get ready and stuff. And I'm pretty sure Noah had to be like, man, what's going on? Gotta build this ark. Nobody's listening to me. What's going on? But he had to be definitely a man of faith and someone to, be able to be fine-tuned to God's word and God's voice to know what he had to do and to do what he had to do. So that's something definitely that's important and stuff like that, us knowing when God is talking to us, when he is speaking his word to us, knowing how to differentiate that and to follow through with it. And thankfully, due to Noah, that's where all the rest of humanity comes from in that aspect. The second person I want to talk to you about from the Bible is Daniel, which many people may know about the story of Daniel or not. Some parts of it, some not, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people have not heard about the story of Daniel and the lion's den, which that story can be found in Daniel chapter 6. So, as my notes say, Daniel was a faithful servant of God. He would take time to speak with God and pray 3 times a day. That got him into some hot water when some of the men who worked in the palace brought up the idea to King Darius to make a law that anyone who worships anyone but the king must be thrown into the lion's den. So these guys probably saw how Daniel had favor with the king and was in such a high rank, and they were probably pretty jealous of him. So they were like, probably masterminding like the little evil, guys over there in the corner. What can we do to take down Daniel? They're like, wait a minute, every day he's, we see him in his, in his room praying to God and all that stuff. And like, why don't we make a law that if he does that, which he's not going to stop doing, he'll get in hot water with the king, and that way they're going to have to throw him in the lion's den. So that's what happened. Not necessarily sadly, but Daniel was caught, of course, praying and talking with God. And when they reported to the king, whether he wanted to or not, had no other choice but to follow through with his law. And they had to throw him into the lion's den. Now, I've never seen a lion in person that I can remember of, maybe like in the zoo, but I can remember. But as you see on TV stuff, lions are pretty intimidating animals. And I'm pretty sure if they see some, fresh meat, like they say, they're going to pretty much tear it up pretty quickly, I would imagine. So with that being said, I would imagine they probably had those lions starved or whatever. That way, whenever they were going to torch someone, boom, they threw them there, they ate them up, and that was it. Lions were fed, then, everything was taken care of. But the next day, as the story goes, when the king goes to check on Daniel, he sees Daniel still alive. He's not harmed, touched. He's intact like the way he was before he went inside of there. And I know that was something that when the king saw that had to impact him to be like, wow, this guy really does pray and worship a God that is something special, because only God can do such a thing like that. So, like I was saying, I can imagine the king had to be really impacted by that, and that's something that I'm pretty sure, you know, all the people that were around there were probably like, wow, this is something that's very special, because again, like I said, lions are predators. They're not prey. So lions are going to attack. They're not going to just be like, you know, chill out, relax, and mind their business. No, they're going to go after something when they want to eat it. But seeing that had to be something that was pretty amazing in that aspect. There are many more different examples in the Bible that we can see with some of the greatest men that walked on this earth mentioned in the Bible going through various trials and tribulations. You have Abraham, who went through the situation where at an older age he had his son, and all that situation going on where he had to then sacrifice his son, which was something that was big and impactful in that sense. You had Moses, who had to deal with helping the Israelites, who were in slavery for over 400 years, flee and leave from Egypt, and then also he had to deal with them throughout the desert. And you also have King David as well, who, like the scripture says, he was according to God's heart. He went through various different things in his life, very different aspects and stuff, and he wasn't, you know, the most perfect man in this world either. And amongst many different other examples I'm pretty sure you could find in the Bible that show that even though these men were very close to God and they seeked him and stuff, they went through big trials and tribulations. So I'm not saying they're better than us, but we're no one special or different to not go through anything. Just like they're not better than us and they went through what they went through. Now, the key points to note are that everyone struggles and have to face trials and tribulation. It's who your faith is in, what you do in said situation, and how you approach it that can make all of the difference. Just know that all that happens in our life is, whether it's good or bad, is permitted in a lot of sense by God for either a learning purpose or, of course, something he wants to bless us with. But he's always working, in other words, to get us in the path he wants us to go through, you know, our point A to point B, which a lot of times we would hope would be a straight line, but unfortunately it's a very squiggly line with a lot of turns and curves. So just imagine, you know, you're driving, I don't know, depending where you live, on a road where it has a lot of twists and turns, hills up and down. That's kind of the path we tend to go on, which is not necessarily a bad thing, even though we may think that in the moment. But in the long term, that's what's going to get us to our final destination, which we need to get to. Now, I would like to close with this. Pretty much, I bring this story up to you because pretty much 2020, like I mentioned in the first video with Carla, and I mentioned to you now, probably wasn't the best year for everyone. I know for me personally, I had a lot of struggles, but I also had a lot of good things that, you know, went on that may seem minor, but was really good. But we have to take what happened in 2020, do our best to build from the negative and make it into a positive, and use 2020 as a learning experience so that 2021 could be a better and successful year for us. And I say that's probably the most important thing, trying to get a positive outlook on a lot of different things. And just hopefully with these stories I mentioned, these few examples, and hopefully with the other ones I mentioned but did not go into in depth, you can hopefully read them through and kind of get some strength and faith behind it, because like I mentioned, these were some really great men who did very powerful things, but they suffered just like we did. And in some situations, it seems a little bit tougher and a little bit more scarier and real than some of the situations we've gone through. But with that being said, not saying one is greater than another, but just like them, they had struggles, we have struggles. But the most important thing is, if we have our faith in God and we believe in him and we trust in him and we follow his word and what he wants for our life, at the end, everything will turn out okay. You know, you may think, oh, at the moment, man, it sucks and it's kind of tough and it's rough, but at the end, it's going to be a learning experience and a stepping stone for something greater and bigger. So I want to end it with that. Hopefully you like this video, and if you do like this video, please let me know. That way we could do a few more of these, and I know Carla will probably do a few as well. Like, subscribe to all of our pages and our channels and all that stuff: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, here on YouTube as well. Please share this video if you think there is someone who is in need of seeing this word and hearing this word. Please do share it with them, and just for any other of the other videos we do as well. Hopefully you can support us, and also you can support those who are supporting us and our channel as well. Let's stop this video right now to give a very important shout out. First up, Brown Brothers Apparel. Brown Brothers Apparel is run by a coworker of mine and a good buddy called Nate. He recently opened up a clothing line and business, that way people like you and I can get high quality, fashionable apparel at a reasonable price. He has shirts and hoodies for both men and women, as well as some clothing for the kids. Check him out at www.brownbrothersapparel.com. Again, that's www.brownbrothersapparel.com. This special shout out goes to a man by the name of Emilio Soto of the House of Levites Music. Emilio is a young and humble servant of God with the gift to produce some amazing music. He is a sound engineer from New Jersey who enjoys doing God's will more than anything else. Emilio has allowed me to use his single, I Am, the instrumental, as the background music for this video. You can check out this song on his YouTube channel and on Spotify at eSoto Music, as well as follow and support him on Instagram and Facebook under at the House of Levites Music and at eSoto Music. If you are in need of some music or your church needs assistance in the sound engineering department, feel free to reach out to him. Bless both of these ministries/businesses by liking, sharing, and subscribing to their respective businesses. So that'll be all for it, and we'll see you in the next one.